All right, I think I'm live. Yes, looks like there's some people out there. Can you hear me? Let me know if you can hear me out there. Testing 1 2 1 2. All right, how's everybody doing? Thanks for coming by on short notice. That's just something I just felt like doing. I was trying to think of a video to record for today, and I couldn't think of anything. So I just thought I would do a live stream. Yeah, I'm doing good, Luke. Yeah, I was thinking about you. I'm gonna do a video on. I'm gonna make a video soon on are people's albums too long? And I know that you asked a question about EPs and full length records and how long they normally are and stuff like that. So I'm gonna try to answer all those questions. Let's see. I gotta put my glasses on so I can read. Fred, new sub, enjoying. Thank you. All right, Anthony, Billy Ward, Luke's here, Mr. Time Lord, Alex, AZDH, what's up? And a single, yeah. All right, well, hold on a second. So what Luke has asked me in some of the questions in the comments is the difference between something like this, which is, this is a 12-inch single, which means there's one song on each side. It's, probably about 5 minutes a side. Sometimes they have maybe 2 songs on a side, but it's usually no more than like 5-7 minutes. That's a single. This is an EP. This has 3 songs on each side. Usually an EP is half the length of a normal record. I know some EPs, it's become this thing, especially in the CD age, people calling something an EP, yet it's really like the length of a full length. But back in the day in vinyl records, an EP was typically half the length of a normal record. So this would be a normal record. In the days of vinyl, a normal album was about 20 minutes a side. And there's a reason for that, and I'll explain that. So an EP was typically half the length of a vinyl record, so roughly 10 minutes a side. This is a 12-inch single, which is a regular size record, but it only has, I think this has 2 songs on a side, but sometimes they just have 1 or 2 songs on a side. Then you have this is a 7-inch single. So a 7-inch single, that definitely has just 1 song on each side. So that's usually like 5 minutes or so. So there you go. And it's not a set in. Well, somebody mentioned earlier here. Somebody mentioned the Dream Theater EP being 15 minutes. It's true, like in the CD age. You see, in the vinyl age, okay, so first you were asking about runtime. What Luke was asking is when you see a CD, the time that it gives you for the tracks. When CDs came into play, this became an issue because CD players have timers on them. When they made vinyl records, they didn't have timers on them. So sometimes the CD times don't always match up with the vinyl time, depending on your CD player, how it reads the time. But the time stamp is put in there by the engineer in the studio. When they were making the recording, they put a time stamp on it, and that's where you get the length. So, oh, wow, okay. A lot of people, does 3 to 6 songs count? Yeah, sure. It depends on the length. In the old days, the 70s and 80s, an EP was typically half the length of a normal vinyl record. All right, I lost some people here. Let me say hello to some people. Okay, CK's here. Ruthless is here. Ruthless buddy, what's going on? All right, I want to hear, I'm going to do this in one of my videos, but I'm going to do it now also. I want to send a special thanks to Ruthless Metal. He's in the room with us right now. Ruthless Metal, he has an awesome YouTube channel. Look him up, Ruthless Metal. He does these great, all his videos are great. I especially love his 100 rules of. He'll do 100 rules of thrash metal, 100 rules of doom metal. He does history of bands. He does the 10 things that did cause the downfall of heavy metal. He does all kinds of great videos. And Ruthless Metal did the new graphics that you see for Lair the Alchemist with my the little yellow thumbnail, the intro video that I started using, the short little video, that was Ruthless Metal. So special thanks to Ruthless for helping me out. I appreciate that. Joe Dredd, what's up? Canadian Charlie, what's up? Peter Moeller, I would remind you all to tell about your trip to Sweden. Yeah, all right. Well, we got Ruthless in here. He's from Sweden. We've got Peter in here. Okay, so let me make sure I say hi to everybody. Crew Tube, CK, all right. I think Anthony, Mr. Time Lord. If I miss saying hi to anybody, I apologize. Joe Dredd. Okay, so let me get back to, all right, my trip. This is for Ruthless and for Peter here, my trip to Sweden. Probably, gosh, 12 years ago at this point, I visited my friend, Matthias. Matthias, he's been here at the Lair. He did an Iron Maiden Deep Cuts video with me. And he had to go do something. So I was there with my wife. We went out, and he lives in Bromma, which is like a suburb of Stockholm. I think it's in like the southwestern part of Stockholm, outside of Stockholm. And he was out, and he gave me the code to get back into his, where he lived, like in an apartment building. But we forgot the code, or we couldn't get it to work, so we couldn't get into the building. So he was on a second floor, and he had a balcony, and I could see that he left the door open to his place. So I just climbed up on this thing, and I jumped up on his balcony, and I was climbing up onto his balcony. And one of his neighbors sees me doing this and comes over and is yelling at me in Swedish, what the fucking, yelling and pointing at me. And I'm like, oh, it's okay. I know him. I'm an American. I'm visiting. I know him, and I'm crawling through his window. I know it looks really strange. But so that's my funny Sweden story. I was there for about a week. Hope to be back again because I really enjoyed it. We went to Gamlestan, Old Town, Sweden. We got to do a whole bunch of cool things. All right, so let me see here. CK, thank you, buddy. Anthony Ferraro, the mix for the single All the Fools Say It Away, totally different from, I don't know. I got to check that out. I have a whole bunch of Dio singles, so I never noticed. It's possible because a lot of times back in the day, bands mixed the singles. If they thought it was going to be a single that might be on the radio, they would mix it differently. Sometimes they would even edit it. Like it could be a little bit of what's called a radio edit. You'll see that sometimes now in box sets and stuff. They'll put out a radio edit. Okay, let's see here. Are you the guy on the Anthony Ferraro. I don't know. Have you been on the Prague? See, I think you have. I think I remember you talking to me about Prague. Anthony W., do you have AC/DC High Voltage Australia release? Yes, I do. I have the Australian version of High Voltage. I quite like it. Marhill, favorite bass guitar. Can you see that bass hanging in the back there? That's my favorite at the moment. It's my 5-string Fender Precision Professional. It's a 5-string Precision. That's my favorite bass at the moment. 12-inch vinyl singles always sound the best, better than the LP versions. Yes, and there's a reason for that, because when you're making a vinyl record, I mentioned earlier that typically it's 20 minutes roughly on a side. When you start going over 20 minutes, you start losing sound quality because you have to make the grooves closer together. So when you have a 12-inch single like this, the grooves on the record are able to be, you probably can't really see this, but there's only 2 songs on here, and you can spread the grooves out a lot farther and you can get a much better sound. And a lot of times 12-inch singles can often be like this one. This one's at 45 speed. So the record spinning faster also gives it a better sound. For album, does an album have to be 7 or more songs? Back in the day, it depended. There were some bands that would have one song that was 20 minutes long. It didn't really matter. Less than 25 minutes? No, I'd say 10 minutes or less is an EP in the vinyl era, not really in the CD era. Hey, can you shout out to Mark? He's my dad and loves you. Hey, Mark, what's up, man? What is your most valuable LP, Joe Dredd? My most valuable LP is a test pressing of the first Candlemass album, Epicus Doomicus Metallicus. I have a test pressing of that. Okay, sorry, the questions are going by here kind of quick. If I missed something, I apologize. Let's see here. We got a lot of fans of Ruthless Metal in here. That's good. He's got a great channel. Did you see any polar bears while being here? No, for a minute there, I thought you were talking about there's a hockey team in Florida called the Orlando Solar Bears. I didn't see any polar bears. We were there in the summer. So I guess the polar bears only roam in the streets of Stockholm in the winter, right? Best thrash album video. Yeah, his thrash metal, Ruthless does all. He's doing a year by year the best thrash metal albums. I think he started in 83 or 84, and those videos are great. Me and my family watch you, and we always go around the house and say, "Welcome to the Lair of the Alchemist." Thank you, TTV. I appreciate that. Yep, I almost got arrested in Sweden. And what was funny about it was this lady, she was actually very nice about it. I said she was yelling. Nobody yells in Sweden, do they? Right? All Swedes are so polite. In fact, I'll tell you another funny story, how polite Swedes are. So we had to take the bus from where my friend lived to get to the subway. And when we were on the subway, of course, I'm speaking English to my friend. And this guy sitting near us, he comes up to me and he says, "Oh, you're from the United States." And he's speaking like broken English. Where, for those who don't know out there, Swedes they speak English as good as anybody. They're some of the best non-native English speakers in the world. So this guy comes up to me on the bus and he starts ranting and raving about New York City for some reason. He's like, "New York City is evil," and he's like, I can't even understand what he's saying. It was really strange. So when we got off the bus, the guy follows us off the bus, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy's gonna like keep bothering me about New York City. I wasn't from New York City. I don't know. He just heard an American. He thought New York City. And he comes up and he apologized. He was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to insult your country in New York City. I apologize for that." And I sort of jokingly told him, "Don't ever trash talk New York City. If you ever go to New York City, that could get you in trouble." What happens if the runtime is 358 and 3D is 355? It's just different CD players, Luke. They just sometimes measure the times a little bit differently. Okay, sorry. This thing jumps around at me. The time thing jumps around. The chat thing jumps around at me. No, Luke asked, so would an album be more sound quality? No, not necessarily. Witchfinder General, new wave of British heavy metal or doom? Ooh. My first reaction was doom, but really they are really coming out of the new wave of British heavy metal. So, gosh, that's a tough one. I'm going to say doom just because they influence doom so much. It's kind of like Black Sabbath didn't call themselves doom, but they basically created doom. So it's sort of like the same thing with Witchfinder General, like a proto doom. Why did Mustaine change things on his remasters? Thoughts, anyone? Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know why. He apparently thought it was making it better. I think sometimes artists think that, oh, with modern technology, we're going to take this recording that even if the recording doesn't sound that good, the fans have gotten used to it and they've come to love the way it sounds. For instance, Steve Harris doesn't like the sound of the first Iron Maiden record, but I think Maiden fans would go crazy if they did some kind of crazy remix, remaster thing of that. They would go crazy. Thanks, Luke, my Celtic Cross. Okay, nice Vertigo label. Yeah. Are you talking about the Lair the Alchemist saying Ruthless Metal did that for me. I mentioned that earlier if you were here, and the Lair the Alchemist logo now is based off of the first Black Sabbath album. What do you think of Wasp with Dwayne Russell? I like the first couple albums. It's funny you say this because a couple months ago I was talking to somebody about doing a Wasp video. And I really like the first album, and it loses me a little bit after that. I like them, like the Crimson Idol. I like it. I don't love it. They're all kind of like 7 out of 10s for me. I'm not quite sure why I don't like them more. I would think that I would like them more. I think Blackie Lawless's voice, it grates on me a little bit. But I mean, they're still cool, and I'm going to do a video on them, I'm sure, at some point in the future. The remasters, Mr. Time Lord, were only needed for the first 3 Megadeth albums. The rest are sound war victims. Yeah, you know, I'm kind of hoping that some bands go back and redo their catalog, these albums that were crushed dynamically. If the Loudness Wars, I made a video on that. You hear me ranting about that all the time. I wish that some bands would go back to albums, especially like from the 2000s to 20s to 2010 seemed to be when it was really out of control, and maybe remix things with more dynamic range. I would be all for that. And Justice for All would have sounded horrible on one record. Yeah, that would have probably, I don't know what the time length on Injustice for All is, but that would have been probably impossible to fit it on one record. The most, I have some records that have like 27 minutes on a side, and that's like crazy. That's where you see the grooves are like right up against the inner, circle thing. There's like no run out space because it's just so much time. And yeah, and when a vinyl record has too much time on it, the volume usually goes down. It's the sound stage collapses a little bit. The sound quality drops. These reviews, I've always considered Blue Cheer's debut as the first true metal album. What aspects of that record do you think withhold it from the position in the public eye? I have when it comes to who is the first heavy metal album or the first heavy metal bands and stuff like that, I draw a distinction between what I call loud blues, which for me is kind of what Blue Cheer was. Blue Cheer was, their heaviness came from the fact that they were playing really, really loud, and they had some heavy riffs too, and the way they recorded the stuff, but they didn't have quite the minor key dark sound. They didn't have the imagery. They didn't have the overall vibe of, like, let's say the first Black Sabbath album, the cover, the band name, the minor key riffing, the gothic as in a time frame type of lyrics. So Blue Cheer, for me, I would certainly say that they are a part of the family tree. That sort of late 60s Blue Cheer, Cream. It's another reason why I don't consider Cream to be heavy metal. I consider them to be influential on heavy metal. Like Blue Cheer is certainly an influential band, and Blue Cheer, I think, will become really influential with like stoner rock and even in the doom metal world. So like Blue Cheer, Cream, Hendrix, they're all important to the formation of metal, but to me, they don't have quite enough elements to make them a real metal band. And I also think too that Blue Cheer didn't have enough albums out, and they didn't cross over into the mainstream enough. Most people know Blue Cheer for Summertime Blues, and that's like what you hear on the radio. And so I just don't think they crossed over into the mainstream enough or were around long enough to get the recognition. Crude Tube, are you into Vulture? I'm not sure I know who they are. No, I've never heard of them. Are they cool? I'll have to check them out. CK, they ruined Rust in Peace. Yeah, kind of. AZDH, has anyone ever seen the movie Stoned Age? Cool BOC reference. And Eric and Buck make a cameo at the end. No, I've never even heard of it. I'll have to check that out. That'll be a good trivia question for Metal Jeopardy. I'm always looking for questions. folk rock heart, or glam metal heart. Folk rock heart. I like the earlier stuff like Dreamboat Annie and what's the one? Darn it! It's the two of them standing on the cover. They look like they're in almost like Renaissance garb. That one I like too. Dwayne Russell, when Todd Rundgren put out the first Utopia Prague album, it was 30 minutes a side. Wow. 30 minutes 30-minute song on side 2. I hear the sound quality was sacrificed to fit it on there. It had to be. It's almost impossible to, especially back then, it's almost impossible to fit 30 minutes. I mean, you could get it onto a side, but you're really sacrificing the grooves. It also causes the needle to skip because the grooves are so narrow. I have a Def Leppard Hysteria vinyl, and that should have been put on 2 records, but I have like an original pressing. If you probably bought a new version of Hysteria, it would probably be a double vinyl, but mine is a single, and I don't know how much it is on a side, but it's up there. It's like 27, 28 minutes, and the grooves are so close together that it skips on my record player. My record player never skips, and the record looks like it's in mint condition, like it's never been played. Jolly Roger, when is the next Metal Jeopardy? Yeah, I'm working on it. I'm working on, hopefully we're going to record this Sunday, and that means it would be out not this Wednesday, the following Wednesday. I try to put them out on Wednesday. Usually it takes me about 2 weeks to get the next set of questions together, but I've got people lined up, and sometimes it's tricky. We were going to record this last Sunday, but it was Father's Day on Sunday, and it's sometimes hard coordinating people's schedules. Now that's awesome, Luke. Thank you. Are you saying that the first 3 are acceptable? Okay. Ruthless. No, we don't dare to scream at people. Yeah, Swedes are pretty mellow people. Okay, I sort of lost my. This thing just jumps on me every now and then. Favorite live songs rank. Okay, Alex, favorite live songs you prefer over the studio versions? Ugh, okay, that would be a good video topic. I'm gonna jot that down, man. That's a great topic. Off the cuff, I personally like live songs that give you something different than what was on the studio version. Like, for instance, AC/DC's If You Want Blood. There's different guitar solos. They stretch out some of the spots. Bond changes the lyrics in the Jack. Angus does like an extended solo in Let There Be Rock and Bad Boy Boogie. So I like when there's something different. Like, for instance, I admit that Rush is an amazing live band, but a later era Rush live I find kind of boring because it sounds just like the album. I prefer it when I prefer hearing how bands translate stuff into a live setting. Cheap Trick had Budokan. A lot of those are like I Want You to Want Me is completely different on Budokan than it is on, I forget what album, In Color, I think that was originally on. So those are some. I have to think about that. That's a great topic for a video. Okay. Anyone here into Metal Church, Merciful Fate, or Crimson Glory? Yeah, those are great bands. I love all of those bands. There's got to be fans of those bands here, right? Have you, Dwayne, have you done any videos on Striper? No, I haven't. And I actually like Striper. I've got a whole bunch of Striper records back here. They're actually my wife's. My wife was a really big Striper fan when she was a teenager, and I've seen them live, and I do like them, like To Hell with the Devil and the Yellow and Black Attack. I think are really great. Anthony W., what are your favorite foods? My wife is Vietnamese, so I really like Vietnamese food. I like stir fries, tofu, stir fry of vegetables and noodles and stuff. Also, what else do I like? Pizza, stuff like that. But I like Vietnamese food as a personal favorite. Okay. An amazing channel. Agreed. Thanks, guys. This thing keeps jumping around at me. Thanks, CK. Never miss an episode. Yeah, CK was here with me for our Rush Moving Pictures episode. That was a lot of fun. Oh, somebody's talking about Population 2. Yeah, that Randy Holden album. Yeah, I love that. I've been meaning to get that on vinyl, and I keep just slipping my mind because that's a heavy record. And he was in Blue Cheer. I forget. I think he was only on one Blue Cheer record, but that's a really heavy record. To me, that's more metal than Blue Cheer. Have you got the Sabotage box set yet? Carl asks. Yeah, I did. And Darren, those out there, Darren's been here on the channel with us before. Me and Darren are recording a video tomorrow night talking about the Sabotage box set, and we're going to put that up on Wednesday. So you're going to have our thoughts on the Sabotage box set. We're also going to talk about the Volume 4 box set, and we're specifically going to talk a lot about the live albums that are in those box sets, but this sets in general too, like the remastering and everything. Dwayne Russell, yes, that was Runegren's A Wizard, a True Star. It's funny. I think I've told this story on this channel once or twice. I had an uncle when I was really young, gave me a box of 8-tracks. It was like maybe 30 or 40 8-tracks in it. And Todd Rundgren, A Wizard, a True Star was one of those. If Mike G, if Population 2 was 1969, it would have been impressive. Sadly, it was 1970, a bit late to the party. Yeah, kind of. It's still a really heavy record. But yeah, you're right. If it had come out in like 67 or 68, it would have been the heaviest thing running at the time. Luke, yeah, maybe I'll do a thing on runtime sometime, Luke. I'll try to incorporate that into a video. It's impressive. It's heavy. It is a really heavy record, that Randy Holden. Mint means perfect. Yes, Luke, if you're buying a vinyl record, if it's mint, that should mean it's basically without flaws. In a lot of ways, that means it's almost like I expect it to be like, it might be opened, but it's been not played, or it has absolutely no flaws with it. Any real difference with weightier LPs? I've never had any issues with skipping with lighter, heavier LPs. Any other differences? Joe Dredd asked that question. So I think you're talking like you see all these records now with 180 gram vinyl. Honestly, I don't think it makes a difference. I really don't. Some people say you can cut the grooves are cut deeper on 180 grams. I don't know. I don't believe it. I don't hear any difference. I see just as many, and I see people talk about this on YouTube. You can get just as many warped 180 gram LPs as you can, a regular LP. I don't even know what the size of a regular LP was. Now, in the 70s and 80s, you did occasionally see really cheap vinyl where you got it and it was almost like a flopping around when you held it. That I think sort of affected the sound quality, but I don't really think 180 gram makes any difference. That's just me. Maybe an audiophile will comment on that, but I've never heard anybody say like just because something's on 180 gram, it's making it better. Yeah, happy Father's Day, Luke. Thank you. Detroit Rock City from Scooby-Doo was the best version. Anthony W. Yeah. Dwayne Russell, UFO, Love to Love, and Kiss Rock and Roll are both better on the live albums. Yeah, okay. I forgot about Kiss. Kiss is another band that, pretty much for me, the Kiss Alive, all those songs are better than the studio versions because the studio versions of the first 3 Kiss records feel really stiff to me and the production is really bad. So those are good examples. Motorhead, No Sleep to Hammersmith, prefer all those songs to the studio versions. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that's another one where they sort of bring a lot of extra energy and life to those songs. Luke asks, why does runtime always start at 0? Well, that's when the engineer in the studio is making it, everything, the new song always has to start at 0 for the CD player to be able to read it. Mr. Time Lord, a big fan of CG. I met Midnight at the Brass Mug twice, and he told everyone that he was the singer on the first Camelot album to keep that rumor alive. Wow, interesting. That's very interesting. Turntablist, the live version of By Tour and the Snow Dog from all the stage All the World's a Stage blows away the studio version. I actually really like that first All the World's a Stage, their first live album, because to me, they interject a little more energy into the songs, and it's a little Rush is never loose, but there's just a little bit more, just the three of them playing live raw, and I think it's awesome. And I wish that they had sort of kept that sound as the live albums went on. I still like Exit Stage Left, but the live albums after that, to me, they just sound like the studio versions. It doesn't work for me. The Allman Brothers Whipping Post is better on the Live at the Familiar than the studio album. Yeah, right. So bands like that extended and jam songs out, like Cream, the Allman Brothers, Deep Purple made in Japan. There's a whole bunch of songs on there. Like I would say Highway Star is better on Made in Japan than the studio version. Space Truckin' is like 20 minutes long. It's like a entire side of one of the records. So yeah, back in that day in the 70s, bands used to really stretch out a lot more and do different things, and it was sort of expected. Led Zeppelin, I mean, gosh, Dazed and Confused, the live version from The Song Remains the Same is just incredible. And that was just a thing that they did in the 70s. It seemed like in the 80s and especially in the 90s and the 2000s that people just stopped doing that. They just, started playing things more strictly like the album. Hey, John the Dark Wizard, have a book on heavy metal mentions the Kinks really got me heavy, but the later era, Hendrix, Cream, Blue Cheer, and Late. The Kinks get mentioned a lot when people are talking about the origins of heavy metal. And if you're interested in this, Martin Popoff has an interesting book called Who Invented Heavy Metal? And he goes way back, like practically back to the cavemen, like talking about early classical stuff. And he goes way back and traces it. And the Kinks get mentioned a lot because they were one of the first groups to use like a really distorted guitar sound. And that sound you hear on You Really Got Me, that was really unique for its time, very overdriven, not by today's standards, but by those standards back then. And a lot of people like Jimmy Page and Ritchie Blackmore talk about hearing that and that inspiring them to distort their guitars and to go for that sound. What bands, Bengal Gangster, what bands do you think are very overrated? Pantera. I'm not a huge Pantera fan, although I can understand why people like Pantera. They're very good at doing what they do. Dime is a great guitar player. I actually think Kiss is a little overrated. I like everything up to like Alive 2, and then after that, I kind of like Dynasty, but I think they're a band that gets held in this super high esteem, and I think more of that has to do with just people's memories, people who grew up with the band. I mean, I still think that they're a great band, but I don't know. Pantera for me jumps out as a band that gets praised a lot that I think is kind of overrated. CK, I'll do more collab videos. Just let me know what you want to do it. Yeah, we're gonna do some more for sure. You're gonna be my Rush guy the next time we do a Rush video. All right, my thing just jumped on me again. Okay. Crude Tube, will you attend the upcoming Judas Priest tour? Yeah, I already bought my tickets. They're coming to Orlando in, I think, August or September, sort of towards the end of the summer. John the Dark Wizard, 60s gave birth to Zeppelin, Sabbath, then sprung, 69, 70, as well as Deep Purple. It's true, like, everything comes from somewhere else. You wouldn't have gotten Led Zeppelin without the Yardbirds. You wouldn't have gotten Black Sabbath and Uriah Heep without Cream, and so all of these things, sort of one thing. You wouldn't have gotten any of these bands without Buddy Holly or Chuck Berry. It's like all these things. One thing sort of leads and influences another. So that's why it's always so hard to trace, like, okay, who was the first heavy metal band? It's hard to say because it's something that just sort of evolves organically over time. I never ever miss an episode of my music question in the comments down below. Yes, thank you, Luke. Wasn't those live albums already contained on Past Lives? CK's asking about I'm guessing you're talking about the Black Sabbath ones. Sort of. So for the Volume 4 box set, they remixed. Now, if you remember my video on the difference between a remix and a remaster, they remixed the Live at Last show. So it sounds completely different than any version you've heard before. But technically, yes, those songs were released before, but this is completely different. If you're a fan of it, you should get it because it sounds way better. Sabotage has a show they listed as live in North America, I think. I can't remember what they call it, but it's from Asbury Park, which was a radio broadcast. So there were a lot of bootlegs of that. It's never been officially released. So this is the first official release. Although on past lives, there are a couple songs from the Asbury Park show. I think Megalomania, maybe Hole in the Sky or Symptom of the Universe, just like a couple songs from the Asbury Park show on past lives. But this is the complete show. It's across 3 vinyl albums. And it, in my opinion, it sounds great. The Paranoid box set has 2 shows. It has the live show audio from, there's a real popular video of them from 1970, Paris 70. It's the audio from that. And where's the other show? Switzerland or Brussels, I can't remember. And that's, I don't know if it was a radio broadcast or if it was a soundboard, but it sounds excellent. And both of them are like right when Paranoid had just can't come out. So it's really cool because you get to hear Ozzy saying like, okay, here's a song from our brand new album. This is a song called Iron Man. You know, it was like they're just playing these songs for the first time. John the Dark Wizard, I may be looking at Styx catching in July, saw twice in the 70s. Wow, that's awesome that you saw them in the 70s. I've heard, doesn't Styx have a new album out? Some of my friends have, I've been seeing people talking about it on Facebook, and I heard it's really good. I'd like to see them. And I think that they're coming to Florida. I've got to look into it. Luke, we'll have to get a different CD player to get the right runtime and CD text. Yeah, some CD players will show you text. A lot of times, though, it's the CD. It has to be programmed in the CD. Even if you have a CD player that will read the text, a song title to you, if it's not programmed into the CD, like older CDs, it won't show up. Only like CDs from maybe, I don't know, the 2000s on did that. John the Dark Wizard. Oh, really? Night Ranger coming with them. I actually have a soft spot for Night Ranger, and I want to see them live. I really like Brad Gillis, and I think they've just got a ton of great songs. Luke, you're welcome. AZDH, looking forward to King Crimson and California Guitar Trio at Talking Sticks in Scottsdale. Yeah, King Crimson, I want to go see them too. I forgot about that. They're also on tour. There's actually a fair number of cool tours. I'm going to go see Alice Cooper. He's also coming to Orlando in the summer. Alex says, I agree. Most bands, including Rush, used to improvise more in the 70s. Yeah, you know, that didn't seem to be a thing in the 70s, that you were expected to get on stage and just kind of add to stuff. Drum solos, guitar solos, you know, unaccompanied drum solos and all those things. And to me, I thought that really made it special. I like that. Joe Dredd, Some Enchanted Evening, BOC. Yeah. I would even say that On Your Feet or On Your Knees, all the versions on that are a little bit better than the studio versions because they get a little bit more energy. Mike G, Paul Chapman era UFO, like or dislike? I prefer the Phil Moog era. The Phil Chapman era, it's good. Honestly, my heart is with the Schenker Phil Moog era. I'm looking forward to see Gruesome in Tampa in 2 weeks. Mr. Time Lord, yeah, they're playing in at the Brass Mug, I think. I actually live really close to the Brass Mug. I'm like a couple miles away from the Brass Mug. Okay, my thing is jumping around, so I'm sorry if I'm missing questions. I'm trying to catch everybody's questions here. Why in Japan the CDs are in English, but the lyrics are in both English and Japanese? Well, when they released things in Japan, they wanted for the people in Japan so they could read the lyrics and the liner notes. Tim Saunders, worst album you bought? Mine was Tigers of Pantang, Noises from the Cat House. Was expecting something better. I actually have that record, and I agreed. Some of those Tiger, I think I remember getting that and thinking like I was expecting it to be like this new wave of British heavy metal thing. I remember a Wishbone Ash album. My first Wishbone Ash album I bought was a completely wrong album. I don't even remember what it was called. It has just the two guys standing on the cover. And it was dreadful. It sounded like yacht rock. It was terrible. Man, I can't think of other, like, I've got a bunch of, I didn't know what the record was and I bought it and it was a big disappointment. I've got records that were ruined because of the sound quality, the loudness wars thing. Fred Hamilton, do you collect a lot of new wave of British heavy metal albums, just the big bands, or do you dig deeper into the scene? I don't dig too deep. Like, I know there's people that are really into collecting singles and stuff like that, but I have a fair share of, like, more slightly obscure new wave of British heavy metal stuff. I did like Witch Fiend and I've got like Samson. I've got all the like bigger known name ones, and I do have a couple more like slightly more obscure ones, but I don't go like super deep with it, like buying singles and stuff like that. Oh, there goes the Pantera fans. Ruthless Metal, you started all this Pantera bashing, Ruthless. Go check out Ruthless's channel there. He's got a video on what killed heavy metal. And let's give you a little hint. Pantera's name comes up in the video. Charles Palermo, what's your thoughts on the first three Trouble albums versus the next three, Self-Titled Maniac and Plastic Greenhead? It's funny. The first Trouble album that I bought was Plastic Greenhead. And I think that was a bad Trouble album to start on. Not that it's a bad album, but I think towards the end, they were sort of getting a little bit more like, they lost some of the doom metal sound. So the first three, like the Skull and the Self-Titled and Run to the Light, those are just amazing. That's the era I prefer by a long shot. Mr. Time Lord, Pantera was one of my gateways into heavy metal in the early 90s. Yeah, I understand that. And I think that that's a good point, that Pantera, and I make the same argument with Metallica's Black Album. When people dump on the Black Album, and I did an In Defense of the Black Album video, for a lot of people, that was their gateway into metal. And for that, I applaud them. I applaud Pantera for being probably the heaviest band that was on the radio in the 90s when, pretty much all the metal bands from the 80s got wiped off the map. Pantera was like the heaviest thing by a mile. And they used to talk about how they liked heavy metal. So I give them, Phil Anselmo has always been a big supporter of the underground. And you can see pictures of Phil wearing a St. Vitus t-shirt or, a Watchtower t-shirt or something, So Phil's always been a supporter of like classic metal and underground metal. So for that, I do respect them. Turntablists, I don't know. I just got to go with the obvious choice and say Black Sabbath are the true progenitors of heavy metal. They were the first to encompass all of the necessary elements. I agree with that. For me, the three bands are 1970 Deep Purple and Rock, Black Sabbath, and Uriah Heep, the first Uriah Heep album. And out of those, Black Sabbath, their first album, is really, if you want to point to a ground zero for heavy metal where it all kind of comes together, where the heaviness of Blue Cheer and the heaviness of Cream and the Hendrix and all that stuff gets put in and it gets wrapped in a heavy metal envelope, put a heavy metal bow on the top of it. To me, it's the first Black Sabbath album. CK, I can do more than Rush. I'm a fanatic about other metal and hard rock bands. Yeah. All right. We'll do it. Peter Muller, Axe Witch, Out of the Ashes and Into the Fire for like 80s metal, my local heroes. I'm looking behind me. I've got it. I've got that album. I've got two. Hold on a second. This is Axe Witch. I think I even did with my buddy Perula when we did a Swedish metal thing. I think one of us talked about Axe Witch. Uh, oops. Again, I think he's jumping on me. Sorry if I miss a question, everybody. Do I think crude tube? Do I think? All right. So Carl writes, Carl Wilgut. Now bands are starting to tour again. Any upcoming shows you're looking forward to? Yeah, I mentioned earlier I'm going to see Judas Priest and Alice Cooper this summer. So that's really cool. Glad to see bands out there again. Crude tube. Do you think the Bouchard brothers will ever get back into BOC? No. I think that, I mean, they seem to have, they're on good terms. Albert, when they did the anniversary of Agents of Fortune, Albert got up and sang the songs that he sang, but I don't think it's going to happen again. I think BOC is happy where they're at. Kind of, BOC plays a lot, man. Look at their schedule. It's crazy how much they play. Luke, yeah, I don't know. It's different CD players are different as far as the text thing, and I don't really know how to tell that. John the Dark Wizard, hadn't seen Night Ranger. Yeah, I haven't seen them live either. Lazarus, what's up? Trouble Rules, yeah. Do you enjoy Merciful Fate? Oh, yeah, man, I love Merciful Fate, CK. Actually, I made a Merciful Fate video with Darren and Mike, who've been on the channel before, and something happened to the video when I tried to download it. It got damaged. Hey, Lazarus. Oh, you're talking to the other John, yeah. John the Dark Wizard. My name's also John. I'm the Alchemist. John the Alchemist. I don't know, Luke. I don't know. I'd have to see your CD player. I don't exactly know what model that is. Are you an ex-Hoarder fan? Don't know much about them, Charles, to tell you the truth. I don't think I have any of their stuff. I've heard them, but I don't really know a whole lot about them. Oh, cool. John, you saw them saw Pantera in 2001. Lazarus, in the 90s when peeps were listening to stuff like Pantera, my ears were listening to overseas material from Germany, Sweden, etc. Yeah, it's people who are like fans of metal in the 80s. You know, that's kind of where they went is to the European, more extreme metal stuff. For me, yeah, I'm probably going to make a video on this at some point. I actually drifted away from metal for a few years in like the early 90s and sort of came back around 93. So I sort of missed the extreme stuff when it was happening. I didn't kind of come back around to that stuff till later. Ruthless, I love Axe Witch. It's hard for me to say that. Legendary Swedish band. Yeah, Ruthless. Perula did a Sweden, I don't know, 10 Swedish underground bands or something like that I did with him. And I know one of us talked about it, Axe Witch. Bengal Gangster, I think In Rock needs to be mentioned in the heavy metal origins. Yeah, I mentioned a little earlier that for me, In Rock, Uriah Heep, and Black Sabbath's first albums are very influential. Those are the big three. Electric Funeral 6, hello from Argentina. What's up? I think it's just that Black Sabbath had more of a worldwide appeal. Like here in the States, even though Deep Purple is popular, they were never as popular as Black Sabbath. So I think because Black Sabbath just had more big time success, you know, it draws a little more attention to them. Mr. Tondler, Pantera was the gateway, and then Cannibal Corpse was an Ace Ventura. That was the end of me liking Pantera for a long time until I was in high school in the early 2000s. Yeah, cool, man. That's the first I saw Cannibal Corpse too, was in Ace Ventura. Editube, favorite Alice Cooper album, Billion Dollar Babies. I love the production on that record. I'm a big Bob Ezrin fan. John Croce, another Sinister Realm album possible? Probably not. I live in Florida now. The other guys are in Pennsylvania, and the drummer, he's even moved to. We're all in different places now, and yeah, probably not. It would be cool, but I guess never say never. Does the laptop read runtime? I don't know, Luke. That's a good question. John the Dark Wizard, ever get into Medieval Steel? Oh, yeah, I love Medieval Steel. That EP, I wish I could find that on vinyl, but it's super expensive. I have a photo on Instagram. Yeah, you know what? I didn't know I had an Instagram page. I think that I do, but I have no idea how to access it. I've never used it. So sorry, I don't check my Instagram. What are your two gig posters in the background? I think you mean those up there. That's Cream. Uh, I can't see what it says, but Cream and Jethro Tull. I'm going to be doing a video like tour of my room soon to show everybody what's in my room, and then show you the my audio equipment. Favorite three vocalists: Ronnie James Dio, Bruce Dickinson, Bon Scott, just off the top of my head. What do I think of the new Halloween, Tim Saunders? I haven't heard it. I didn't even know they had a new album out, to tell you the truth. Wow, that blew right by me. I have to check it out. I like Keeper of the Seven Keys and that stuff. I lost a little on Halloween. My wife actually really likes Halloween, and we've seen them live a few times. What were you listening when you took a break from metal, MK? It's sort of a long story. I'm going to make a video about this, but it came at a time when I was in college. So when I was in college, I was listening to a lot of jazz and classical because I sort of had to do that. I was a music major. And then I went through a phase where I was listening to a lot of like funk and funk rock and 70s funk and stuff, because I was playing in a band that did like original funk rock music. So that's kind of where I drifted to. But at that time too, I was also into like a lot of the early grunge stuff. I got into like Alice in Chains and Soundgarden and Pearl Jam. So I just sort of drifted away from traditional metal, the 80s stuff, because I got a little burnt out on it. You know, everything started to sound the same. A lot of the bands that I liked weren't putting out, they were putting out albums that to this day I still don't care for, like Judas Priest was putting out, Ram It Down and things like that. Iron Maiden was putting out Fear of the Dark and stuff like that. And I've grown to appreciate those albums over time, but back then I just sort of got burnt out on the whole thing. Yeah, I'll look for that Instagram thing, Luke. I'll have to try to log into my Instagram again. Tim Saunders. Tim Saunders, every time I say your name, I want to say there's an announcer for the Philadelphia Flyers, the hockey team. I'm a big Flyers fan, and their radio announcers are Tim Saunders and Brian Prop. So Tim Saunders, what do you think of KK's Priest new release? Whew. At first I was disappointed because I was hoping Les Banks was going to be on it. Turns out Les Banks isn't. When I thought Les Banks was on it, I was thinking that maybe they would do something a little more 70s Priest style. I'm a little disappointed that it sounds like they're really trying to sound like Painkiller. I mean, I love Painkiller, but I was hoping they would go for more of a classic sound. But the more I listen to it, I like it. So I'm looking forward to it. I don't think it's going to be something that I'm going to be completely blown away by, but I think it's going to be a fun listen. And we'll see. I was a little disappointed with like the first song. It was like Ripper was singing in like that song, the song Painkiller, the way Rob sings. It was like he was singing like that the whole time. And I just hope the whole album isn't like that. I hope there's more variety on it. How about an Aussie metal segment on Metal Jeopardy, Joe Dredd? Yeah. That's not a bad idea. I should do more like pick a country like topic and then pick bands. I think if I have some people from other countries, like I'm trying to twist the arm of some Swedish friends of mine, hint, hint, to come on Metal Jeopardy. And if I do that, for instance, I'd have a Sweden category. So, but yeah, that's a good idea, Joe. Frank Chadwick, what's up, man? Gaff, your 80s Guilty Pleasure show is tops. Love hearing praise for Gary Newman. Frank, what's up? Frank me and Frank went to high school together. Yeah. Mike, it's good to see you, man. I was actually thinking of you when I made that video because I see you on Facebook and I dig a lot of the music things that you posted. Frank, I've been getting into like more like gothic type stuff, and I see you post stuff like that sometimes. So you got to drop me a line on Facebook, Frank. We got to talk. You got to educate me. Some of the stuff you listen to, I'm not totally hip to, and you got to point me in the right direction. So it's good to hear from you, Frank. I hope you're doing well. Turntablist, in my opinion, the best thing Phil Anselmo has done is Down to, a bustle in your hedgerow, a bludgeoning record that still holds up today. Yeah, I actually kind of like Down because it has almost like a doom feel to it. That was the second time I saw Corrosion of Conformity. There was a Pioneers Day free concert in Buffalo. Cool, Mr. Time Lord. Lucha Libertaria, great channel. I'd love to see more coverage of new hard rock and metal bands on your channel. Thanks, man. Yeah, I should do more. And I was doing a thing. I still want to do it. Thing that I called Ear to the Underground, where I take new underground metal bands and talk about them and review them. I got to get back to that. I agree, man. Thanks for bringing that up. Cool, Luke. I'll check out that Instagram. Electric Funeral 6. Are you into modern vintage occult rock bands like Blood Ceremony? Yeah, I like those bands. I mean, I'm a big doom metal fan, and I'm a big 70s rock fan. So those bands really, that's what kind of they're all about. What is your opinion of the grunge alternative phase? I still like the early stuff. I go back to that. Some of it hasn't aged very well for me. I'm going to do a video on bands I used to really like, but just can't listen to anymore. And a bunch of them fall from that grunge category. Luke, your art teacher loves jazz music. Tell your art teacher they're pretty cool. Ruthless, any opinions on the Legion of Doom, Renberg? Yeah, that's a reference to the Philadelphia Flyers. I'm assuming you're referring to the Philadelphia Flyers, right? Legion of Doom. That's when I first got into hockey. I'm a huge Eric Lindros fan. He's like my all-time favorite hockey player. And we had Renberg was a Swede, wasn't he? I don't think the Flyers, I think, only have one Swede on the team at the moment, Robert Haig. They got to get more Swedes on the team. Swedes are always good defensemen. Bengal Gangsters, hockey your favorite sport? Yes, it is. And the Tampa Bay Lightning are in a playoff game tonight, so I'm going to be cutting out. I'll have to cut out at some point here because I got to catch some of the Lightning game. Hopefully they go to the Stanley Cup again this year. When I'm not, the Flyers are my number one team, but if the Flyers aren't in the playoffs, I root for the Tampa Bay Lightning because they're my hometown team now. Lazarus, I went through a non-metal phase around 92 for about a year or two. Consumed a ton of reggae and love it still to this day. Yeah, you know what? You're right in the same time frame as me. So it'd be a curious question, like if other people have gone through that too. Tim Saunders, Halloween album was released June 18th. Best song in my opinion is Skyfall. Of course, it was written by Kai Hansen, the real creator of Halloween. Yeah, I got to check that out. Gosh, I didn't even know that came out. I will, Luke. Thanks. Crew 2, if 70s metal albums were recorded in the 80s with better technology, would they still be great? Yeah, if they were recorded in the 80s. If they were recorded in the 2000s and beyond when computers started to work, I think it would have ruined them. So I think the charm from the 70s and the 80s was that these bands went in, they played everything. Nothing was fixed with a computer. It was all basically what you hear is the band. I think computers have ruined music in a lot of ways. Mike G, the good thing is grunge, it brought Sabbath back into the limelight and it made lots of folks buy the 70s Sabbath albums. That's a great point because when Soundgarden first came out, they talked all the time about Black Sabbath. And when I first heard Soundgarden, I thought like, yeah, man, this sounds just like Black Sabbath. Anthony W, hint, hint. Frank Chadwick, yeah, man. Frank, you're also on we must be friends on Spotify. I don't even know how this works, but when I open up my app on the computer, I can see what you're listening to, Frank. There's only two people, Paola, my Swedish buddy, and you, Frank. I don't know why. I don't know how this is set up, but I can see whatever you're listening. If you're on Spotify and listening to something live, I can see what you're listening to, Frank. And I've clicked on a few of the things you've listened to check it out. You've got good tastes. Luke Roberts, I'm a senior in high school. Really? All right. Congratulations, man. CK, you mean like Soundgarden and Alice in Chains? Yeah. Turntablists, have you ever tried playing the double bass? It's a totally different instrument than the electric. All right, I got something special for you guys. Hold on. Turntablist just asked if I ever played the upright bass. I don't know if you can hear this, but. So I play the upright bass. I was actually an upright bass major in college, so that's what I majored in. I went to school for music. Yes, I'm on Facebook, Luke. Lair the Alchemist. We have a Lair the Alchemist Facebook page. See you, Tim. Peter Moeller. He's talking to Ruthless. Carl Wilgut. Favorite guitar tones. Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top, some band I've never talked about on the channel. Love his guitar sound. Tony Iommi. Those are ones that jump off. Tampa up one, last I saw. All right, good to know. That's good. John, are you digging any of the new wave of traditional heavy metal? It's like Night Demon. Yeah, I like Night Demon. Eternal Champion is really cool. Haunt is cool. I used to really follow that stuff when I had my band Sinister Realm, because we were kind of traditional metal too. And I want to get the guy from Night Demon. I'm going to send him an email, because the singer bass player from Night Demon, he does like a bunch of other things. Like he has like a record label, and I want to bring him on the show and talk about all the different things that he does. So if anybody knows the guy from Night Demon, tell him Lair the Alchemist wants to get him on the show. Luca, Mike G, Black Sabbath was around with Dehumanizer when grunge was happening. That's true. And it's a pretty heavy album. I thought you, Ruthless, I thought you were from Jönköping. That's South Sweden, isn't it? Luke Roberts, stay heavy, stay metal. All right. John Crozy. I have my any new projects I'm involved in. I have my Majesty in Ruin, and which is like an epic doom metal band. I have an dark electronic project called Chamber of Sorrows. Just got paid. Holy Parish of Doom. I love that song. That is a killer riff. Talk about a killer guitar tone and a killer riff. Turntable is great tone on that bass, man. Nice French bow. Awesome to see that. I have a crappy student model, but I do love all the bass. Awesome, man. Thanks. What band, artists, and albums would you recommend to someone who wants to get into heavy metal? Ooh, Editube. What I recommend is somebody who's never heard heavy metal before. I wouldn't have them start with like thrash metal and stuff like that. I would have them buy some stuff from the 70s, like Paranoid by Black Sabbath, maybe Rainbow Rising, then maybe like a Scorpions album, maybe like Love Drive. Then I'd say like Judas Priest, British Steel, maybe Iron Maiden, Peace of Mind. I would ease them in. I'd also give them a little bit of the LA stuff, like maybe Rat, Out of the Cellar, Dawkins, Tooth and Nail. So I'd give them a little bit of a taste of the 70s. I'd give them a little bit of that early 80s stuff, and I'd give them some of the LA stuff. And okay, John the Dark Wizard. Should a heavy metal band play that stand-up bass with them on stage to be a trip? Yeah, unfortunately, the upright bass amplifies really terribly. Justin Kipper, have you ever worked the upright bass into any of your own metal songs? That would be prog. Yeah, I've actually, what did I use the upright on? I've used it. I have this project called Chamber of Sorrows, where the first two albums were all upright bass, just layered upright bass. If you look it up on YouTube, now I do it, it's all electronic stuff, but I used to just do it on the upright bass. Oh, just jumped on me again. Rufus, I interviewed the Night Demon guy from, oh, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I'm going to reach out to him, because he seems like he's got a lot of stuff going on, and I kind of want to make it, when I interview him, I'm going to ask him about Night Demon, but I kind of want to get, he's involved in all these different things, and I want him to sort of talk about that, because I think that's really interesting, all the different stuff he does. Steven, I'm not going to try to say the other part. I'm sure I'll mess it up. Incredible how Tony Iommi keeps coming up with new riffs. It is, man. He is the king of the riff. It's absolutely incredible. Holy Parish of Doom. Yep, it is. You gotta show some of your jazz and classical favorites. I'm going to, I did my Outer Realm episode. The first one I did was 80s stuff. And I'm going to be talking about, there's going to be an episode on jazz. There's going to be an episode on classical, an episode on like soundtracks and movie soundtracks. Where do you sit with, okay, Ruthless. I love Luca. You love Dehumanizer or Sabbath influence, but the grunge scene was against trad metal. Yeah, it's funny, when like grunge first came out, like Alice in Chains and Soundgarden, those bands were talking about how much they were into like 70s heavy stuff like Black Sabbath, but then grunge became this anti-metal thing, which I think was more of a PR thing. Start them off with the 10 Cent Story, start them off with a Cannibal Corpse album. Yeah, that'll send them running. Yeah, Editu, Rainbow Rising. That would be a cool album for somebody to hear, maybe, or a Deep Purple album, Machine Head. Those are like heavy 70s bands, and then ease them into like the 80s stuff. Sad Wings. Yeah, Sad Wings of Destiny is great. Awesome, Luke. That's cool. Bangla Master, do you listen to Joe Bonamassa and our Black Country Communion? Yeah, I've listened to Black Country Communion. I think they're pretty cool. Joe Bonamassa, he's a great player. Some things I like. I'm not a big fan of like straight up blues type stuff. I like blues influenced guitar playing, but when they do something different with it, I don't like when it's just like da-dun, 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 like that kind of thing. But Joe Bonamassa is definitely an amazing player. Ed Herzog. Ooh, shoot, I messed up the time zone, but I guess I can rewatch it. Yeah, this will be here for everybody to check out when it's over. What's up, Ed? Hope you're doing good. Mr. Tomer, one of my favorite Martin Popoff books. Well, probably some of his earlier stuff, like the Doom Let Loose Black Sabbath book, because that was like the first like really proper, thorough Black Sabbath book. The same thing with his Judas Priest Painkillers book. And I love his Collector's Guide to Heavy Metal. There's the 70s, 80s, 90s. I love those Collector's Guides books. Grunge was more against the hair band. Yeah, that's true, Mike. It was sort of the hair bands. But unfortunately, it just seemed like, at least here in the States, metal, I don't know, in the 90s, it almost became a stigma. Huge Star Wars fan. Sound like you have a cool art teacher there, Luke. Lazarus. Okay, John, here you go. Glenn and KK are David Adrian. I made a video on this. Lazarus, I don't know if you saw it really early on my channel. So you got to go find that video and you got to watch that video. I do a KK and Glenn versus Dave and Adrian, and I answer it in there. So go search back through my videos. It's like really early, like from like the first month or two of my channel. And I'll just say it's an impossible thing to answer, but I think I do give some verdict in the video. He plays jazz music on the laptop during class. That's cool. Holy Parish of Doom, Soundgarden is killer. Oh, that's cool. You saw Alice in Chains. Yeah, Justin, I kind of agree with that. Some of it hasn't aged as well as I thought it would. Promoting Facelift. Facelift is probably my favorite Alice in Chains. Who knows, Luke? Maybe. The 10 Cent Story. I believe Alice in Chains used to tour with Metallica in the 90s. Yeah, I think they did. Do I like Southern rock other than the Almonds and Blackfoot? Yeah. Yeah, I like Leonard Skinner, especially the first Leonard Skinner album. You mentioned Blackfoot. Molly Hatchet. I like some Molly Hatchet. Okay, Luke, I don't know why this was. Oh, I know. All right, sorry. Your comment was blocked for a second, but okay. So strange to me how the grunge tag was more associated with an alternative style rather than a heavy metal. Yeah, it's true. It's weird. When I was growing up in the 80s, alternative was like a different thing than what alternative was in the 90s. Train, train, take me out of this town. I love that song. That's a killer riff in that song. Cool, Luke. Editube, what's your favorite album of Ronnie James Dio's career? Wow, tough question. Real toss-up between Heaven and Hell by Black Sabbath or Rainbow, Long Live Rock and Roll. Yeah, I kind of like Jane's Addiction. Bangla Gangster. Melvins were my favorite grunge band, although back then they disavowed the tag. Yeah, they were pretty heavy, the Melvins. I saw them live once back then, and I just remember it being loud and sludgy. Tad were a good grunge band. Yeah, I sort of remember them. They were pretty heavy. Killdozer. That always happens. I know that's not your fault. Luca. Roberto, those grunge kids that hated Poison and weren't going crazy for Dio and Iron Maiden either. That's a good point. It just seemed like a lot of, and it might have just been a timing thing too. I mean, most bands, if they get 7 years, a lot of those bands had runs through the 80s, and then it was all starting to get stale anyways, and something needed to change. And then grunge came around, and grunge happened. Oh, that's cool, Luke. Yeah. So do you hate the Penguins? Yeah, I do. I don't like the Penguins. He's talking about the hockey team because I'm originally from the Philadelphia area. Of course, I don't like the Penguins. And, I'm not really a football fan, but I root for the Eagles, of course, if I do. So, all right, well, listen, everybody, I'm going to get ready to go. This was really a blast. I love hanging out with everybody. I've got to do this more often. I know I did this early on in the channel and I got away from it, but I have such a good time talking with everybody. I appreciate everybody's support. Thank you for coming by and hanging out. I'm going to head out now. I'm going to watch the rest of this Tampa Bay Lightning hockey game. I appreciate all your questions. I appreciate all your support. We got fun stuff coming up on the channel. We got the Sabbath box set reviews. I've got 2 Swedish buddies coming on with me. We're going to talk about Candlemass's first album, Epicus Doomicus. I'm working on another Lair of the Alchemist. I'm working on another Metal Jeopardy episode, which will hopefully be up next week. I've got a heavy hidden gems from the 70s that I'm doing. I don't have the album here. I thought I had the album with me. A band called Writing on the Wall. I'm going to do a heavy hidden gems of the 70s on them. What else do I got? I got some more Outer Realm videos of some other types of stuff that I listen to, some more heavy thoughts. So that's okay, Frank. You're still up. If I was still in Pennsylvania, I'd probably be rooting for the Islanders. It's just because now I'm here in Florida and I live in Tampa. So I feel obligated to root for the hometown team. Vegas. I'm not sure who I want to win in that series. I don't know if I want Montreal or Vegas. I think I might like to see Vegas go to the final. That would be cool. So, all right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate all your support. I appreciate you guys leaving comments. I apologize that I can't respond to everybody's comments anymore because I just get so many comments, but I do read them all. I really appreciate this. I appreciate you jumping on here and chatting with me. This is so much fun. Gonzalo, favorite Uriah Heep song? All right, I got to answer that before I go. What's my favorite? Rainbow Demon, maybe. I love both Demons and Wizards and The Magician's Birthday. Maybe the song Magician's Birthday too. Man, so hard to pick. All right, everybody. I appreciate it. And we'll see you around the Lair. I've got a lot of cool stuff coming up. Keep the comments coming. And until we see you again, you know the routine. Make sure you stay heavy, stay metal. All right, everybody, thanks. We'll see you again next time.